Thank you, Jimmy, for joining us.
My pleasure. Well, you better thank me in 15 minutes.
Exactly.
So maybe not valid, so I'll be careful. Thank you later.
You are a photographer known for your portraits of tribes and indigenous peoples around the world. You've travelled everywhere, it sounds like, or at least extensively. And you're known for portraying your subjects in a quite stylised manner, which is different or goes against the grain of a lot of ways people have portrayed those groups.
Yep.
So for some context. But we're here to talk about how we can portray and keep human legacy in an increasingly digital world. So an interesting topic, and we're amongst kind of tech entrepreneurs, so I think it's a good meeting of your art form and this world. Thank you for joining us. So I wanted to start off with the idea that photography, at least in my mind, is an act of kind of recording and preserving. I don't know if you conceive of it the same way. What has your work taught you about this human desire to collect and record memories or events?
Big, broad question. I'm going to try and narrow it down as best as I can and flip it. I've been making pictures since I was a kid, since I was 16. I now begin to realize in middle age, I'm 55, that it's not so much about collecting the images, it's about aligning the human emotion and the feelings. Mm-hmm. Till recently, I would describe myself as an artist, but that's just because I was very insecure and I thought just being a photographer was nothing. But now I have to admit I am just a photographer, but I'm an obsessive photographer.
When did that shift?
A couple of years ago. I'm an obsessive photographer for a very specific reason. Mm-hmm. I'm obsessively trying to better understand myself as a human through the eyes of the other. Through a sort of rather extreme disconnection in childhood, I organically went on a journey of reconnection. I wasn't quite aware of it as a teenager. The camera was the medium to validate, to be the excuse to invest. Mm-hmm. You talked about my very specific, very deliberate, aesthetic, directed, iconic, beautifully aspired style. Mm. That's because I'm trying to create a mirror, a human mirror. We were talking about it earlier around the round table, a mirror of how can I redefine my own self, my own beauty, but I first have to invest that in the other, put them on a pedestal.
I see.
In the most extraordinary, dignified light possible. And then if it succeeds, then that can become a mirror for us as human beings. Mm-hmm. So not so long ago, I had the privilege to have an immersive experience. So on one hand, it's about this deep investment for feeling and personal discovery, but at the same time, how do you share that? So we had in Amsterdam and in Paris, there's a hall the size of 2 football pitches with 400 beamers in the roof, and it's a 40-minute immersive experience. And I stood anonymously in that hall, and everybody looked up on the walls at this very directed, styled photography and music. And a large proportion of the people had tears in their eyes, because finally, through technology and aligned with a massive emotional investment, I'm beginning to show us in the developed world, in all our wonders of technological solutions for how we're going to live as human beings, that there is another leg that's needed. One leg is deeply rooted in the future, and we're going to enter the metaverse, which we are doing at the moment. But the other leg has to be deeply rooted in the humanverse. And that's essentially what I'm aspiring to do. And I do that through an aesthetic and through art. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the subject matter you've chosen, that's the one you started out with from the beginning, right?
In essence, I've had a few failures and bangs along the way, and
Did you know that this was that it was about kind of digital and a more human essence?
No, it's totally organic. It's totally organic.
Okay.
It's totally organic. It's sort of a life cycle, a wave life cycle. As a kid, I lived in the developing world. Mm-hmm. I lived on every single continent. Every year I moved. My father was a geologist. Then I was taken out of that world of wonder. Up until the age of 8, every child is full of wonder and trust and love for everything and everybody. I was taken out of that, put in an institution in northern England where everything became disconnected, Catholic priests, till the extent I essentially died mentally and emotionally. And then organically, I wanted to go back to that feeling of trust and connection I had when I was 7.
Okay.
I didn't consciously think about it. I was a teenager. I just put 2 fingers up to the world and stole my father's credit card and ran away to Tibet for 3 years. And slowly and organically, that journey started. And it got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, spending time looking to love and be loved by other human beings, but often human beings that aren't seen to be successful or rich or wealthy.
Yeah.
But in my opinion now, all these years later, they are.
Yeah.
As much as we are, but in a very, very different way. And what I'm trying to do with the art is realign that balance, open us up to, wow, the wonders of authentic humanity in conjunction with all the technological possibilities for the future.
So this is why you've chosen stylized kind of pose.
I didn't choose it. It's organically evolved, but that's handy when you get older. You start sort of following your heart and your feelings, and you failed in all the other areas, and you start going to what matters to you. So it sort of organically happens, and you get closer and closer and closer to the signature of what you feel. Then you have to sustain it, and then But it wasn't a premeditated. I didn't have a business plan when I was 16 with one finger up my nose and the other up my arse going, this is what I'm going to do. I left school when I was 17 and I haven't had any qualifications since that other than living, and the unending journey, lesson that I'm on is how do I feel and what's my role and my place in this world as Jimmy, as a human being. Now I'm beginning to feel that humbly, what the fuck am I going to leave behind? How can I validate and give myself that continued journey for as long as I live? And that's to make sure I leave something even more beautiful behind than what I've experienced. Yeah.
And so is taking photos of a group of people you have recently, I understand you spend a lot of time with the group of people, but relatively recently met, is that also documenting yourself in that moment?
Totally.
How does that work?
It's total armchair.
And are there other forms of self-documentation do you write?
I write. I sometimes speak too much. So I get chat lag as opposed to jet lag. That was in the pandemic. I learned to have chat lag to compensate for the lack of jet lag. You're evolving as a human being and evolving into a storyteller because you become so passionate about what you've seen and experienced. And I deliberately want to stylize it. I deliberately want to make it provocative. The first book I published was called Before They Pass Away. I was warned adamantly, do not give it that title. Not one publisher wanted to publish it because they said, you are nobody, we can't find you online, and this ridiculous title has nothing to do with anthropology. But that mere fact of waving a red flag for humanity caused an enormous amount of controversy, which still exists today if you look online, but subsequently propelled what I do into the world and the discussion around it. If it wasn't for that controversy, if it wasn't for the subjective, passionate, perhaps even naive, but very romantic interpretation of it, I wouldn't be able to still sustain that journey today.
That's interesting. And from interacting with people from all over the world, do you think that it is a universal desire to want to document and leave a legacy, or is this something that we're a bit obsessed with within the West and the development?
I think it's an obsession to want to be seen. It's an obsession to want to communicate with one another. I've started a project on the Middle East at the moment, and I was in the Middle East, and you walk into a place that was essentially a war zone until not so long ago, and you walk in there vulnerably, naked. You express you're afraid. And they say you're one of the first people to want to come and see us. We're told the rest of the world says we're dangerous. We're not. We're extraordinary human beings. We have something to show. And the mere fact that you made that effort. So it's about this realignment of respect for each other as human beings. It's not so much about photography. Photography is just a medium. There are 4 billion photographers on the planet at the moment. I mean, nobody gives a damn about the hundreds of billions of pictures that go into the calendar every day. But it's human beings wanting to reconnect and share each other's stories. It's very much about the stories, So
do you think it's not vain to want to create a legacy? Is it?
I think it's the most important thing. I think if we don't wake up every morning and decide to especially here in the Netherlands, where you come from, the UK, extremely privileged existences, to acknowledge that and say, wow, in this privilege, I'm going to use it and indulge in it and celebrate celebrate this life that I have, but make sure that the generations that follow me have as rich, if not a richer experience, then it is totally about a legacy, but it's what kind of legacy. If it's about a sort of short-term legacy of how fat can I make my belly, well, then it's a complete waste of time. But it's how can I sow the seeds for a future beauty and sustainability, then it's about legacy. Then I think it's imperative we all lead our lives in that way. If we don't deserve to be here. Yeah. And weirdly, once you connect with that, you're propelled every morning to sort of get up and seize the day, because it's a wonderful experience, because you think it's about something bigger.
Yeah.
It's not about me anymore. It's about the short period of time that I still have here as a human being. It's very finite, and it's about what I can leave behind to make sure.
And because the way you work and the way most people now record their lives is digital. I feel like sometimes you use film. Is that the case?
Sometimes.
But
the whole time. The whole time. I use very large analog cameras. They're handmade analog cameras. 10 by 8 plate film. It's about a very, very, very complicated journey. It often takes months, and it's about one image.
Okay.
And I can't see the image when I'm making it because it's behind a screen with a hood over my head. And I have to expose the film. I don't have to. I dare to expose the film. Then I have to wait often a month until I get home to process it.
Okay.
So it's a sort of delayed climax. And if I get back and I see it, and if it's anywhere in the alignment with what I was seeing and feeling when I was in that environment. Yeah, so, I mean, digital, you can sort of whiz around, till your heart's content, spraying and praying and spending most of your time deleting and adapting, but you're not seeing or feeling anything.
That's what I was going to ask. What is lost by the fact through the fact that now the mediums we record our lives with are very quick and digital?
It's about. We were just talking upstairs a few minutes ago in a round table. It's about stepping out of this extraordinary, wonderful, technologically mind-blowing world that we live in, and the speed, and becoming human again. Stepping off. Last summer, I was reconnecting with my son, who's in his early 20s, and we went for a month offline. We went for a month up into Pakistan and Afghanistan. It was part of this project. Wow. The first week he was away, he detoxed, and he was vomiting, he was shouting. He was of a generation that doesn't know anything about being connected. He hated me. He walked away on numerous occasions. The second week he went quiet, and then towards the end of the journey, he came out the other side. And so you need both worlds. You need to feel the enormity of nature. In northern Pakistan, there are 600 mountains over 7,000 meters. Wow. Nature in the most extraordinary scale imaginable, cascading in and around you, makes you very, very small, but very aware and very alert, and very grateful for being here, not fucking sitting online all day.
Yeah, it's also about attention span, right? I feel like we don't have this.
Yeah, and then if you set off in the morning and you've got to walk 30 kilometers across a glacier from one mountain to another, you get into this space of humility to the power of nature and to the moment of being. You may die today. There may be an avalanche that drops on your head. Everything becomes very finite, and then but both are valid. But you need to, we were discussing around the round table, if it's so wonderful and beautiful where I go, why don't you stay there? Because it's wonderful and beautiful here too. But it's both worlds. And you need both worlds to be aligned and in balance. That extraordinary, deeply rooted humanity next to this extraordinary, technologically advanced world. But if you don't align with the humanity of what you're going to do with that technology, it's a waste of time. If it's just about more materialism and consumption, then forget it.
Yeah. I have so many more questions I want to ask you. One more, and then we'll go to the audience, so think of questions. Last question. You're speaking on Capital Day here, which I thought was interesting, because the primary kind of thought, way we conceive of that is monetary capital. What do you think of as capital? What's
I think of humans. For you? I think the capital is already here. It's all sitting here in front of us. It's all there in the world, the capital that we need to sustain ourselves in a good way. But it's how you see, respect, and love yourself and one another. That's the investment that needs to be made in capital, not just raising the numbers on your bank account.
Yeah.
So the capital already exists. It's just how you care for it. Yeah.
That's a lovely philosophy. I like it a lot. Are there any questions? We have this mic, actually. So...
Well, Jimmy, first of all, thank you very much for your speech. Even though you're a photographer, your words impacted a lot, at least me. I got a question. So the journey towards looking for our legacy and our purpose is a very human thing, right? But what do you think is the role of money in this journey? How do money kind of affect you creating your legacy? You as a journalist, your legacy, or searching for your purpose?
I think I often joke. Oh, is it not working now? Can you hear me? I often joke that I'm appalling with money. You show me a spreadsheet and I sweat. I have a panic attack. I mean, the only one thing I'm afraid of is money. I'm brutally numerically dyslexic. I don't remember my PIN codes because I flip them the whole time. So I don't use, I'm terrible. But that's not to say that money's not relevant. It's extremely relevant in the developed world and to sustain an economy. But you have to keep it in balance with what that money's for and how do you... we were talking about it upstairs a few minutes ago. If everything is based on a monetary return, then in the long term, I'm convinced it's not sustainable. It has to be based on also on a reciprocity, giving and receiving as much as having spent a long time, especially in the Pacific. Many of the islands in the Pacific don't use money. It's about reciprocity. It's about what I give you and you give me back more in return. So it's about a trade. So I, as an individual, I can speak for myself. I can't guide or advise you. I have on the naming, a small business. I have 7 employees. A large proportion of the day is about money. It's about sustaining. It's about everything. But every week for half a day, sometimes a whole day, there's a day that's open to a reciprocal, I can't speak, let alone count, investment. So the door is open for people to come in, to ask questions, to share, to show. There is no specific business plan on that day other than reciprocity. Next to that, wherever I go and I take pictures from, and I do eventually take pictures, I return all the pictures I take to carry on a reciprocal conversation. What do you need? When I turn up, they burn the books. We don't use books. The fire needs to be burning, but the fact that you're here's good. You promised you'd return. We need this to sustain our culture. So there is always a reinvestment. There's always a value. There's always a wealth, but it's not necessarily a numerically related wealth and value and money. It's a human wealth and related value and money. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
But But it's all valid. But you've got to keep it in balance. What's that wealth for? Yeah.
Do we have more questions? I'm right here.
Hello, Mr. Nelson. Thank you very much.
Jimmy.
Jimmy. Thank you for portraying the Papua New Guinea people. My family is from Papua New Guinea.
I'm obsessed with that part of the world.
Yeah, I love them too. But what I wanted to ask you is, how do you stay in the moment when you take those pictures?
How do I stay in the moment? Yeah. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I was listening to you, and I wanted to listen very carefully about what you're saying, but I also wanted to catch the moment. And I can imagine if you...
Okay, I'm going to tell a story I told upstairs at the round table, so if anybody here, it's a repeat, but for me, it's a good answer to this question. And it's also valid to today here, the speed of the digital world. I gave a talk a few months ago to 2,000 kids in the States, and I was talking about wealth and investment and analog and slow and seeing and staying in the moment, and none of them understood me. So I could now indulge you and talk about this sort of deep investment in this searching and looking. But they were not listening to me, and we don't have the time today to go down that. So I'm going to go down a shorter route. So one of the kids was saying, we don't understand what you're doing. You make your journey very complicated. And the world has moved on. Are you so old that you don't understand what this is? And he waved his iPhone to me. I said, what's that? He says, it's an iPhone. He said, I know it's an iPhone, but what does that have to do with me? And he says, with this, it's really cool. Our generation can spray and pray. We can make 1,000 pictures in a second, and we don't have to put any effort into it. And I'm going, yeah, and he said, but what you're doing on your own, carrying that tripod and this old analog camera, Jesus, you make your life fucking complicated. And there are no guarantees. Why didn't you make it easy? And then I was going, yeah, but it's about feeling. And then you could see a complete sort of ambivalence, a sort of a grey cloud came over these teenagers as they slowly put their heads back down into their telephones, saying, this old dude on the stage knows nothing. And then I said, okay, what do you want to feel? And this guy said, oh, I don't need to feel anything. I'm a teenager, fuck you, you know. And I go, I don't believe this. You need to feel something. And this was an organic storytelling, but it was quite fun. And I realized I was stuck, you know, I was right in a corner. These kids weren't interested in me to explain being in the moment. And I said, there's something you want to feel. And he started going a bit red on his cheeks, and his friends started whispering at him. He said, yeah, okay, but you wouldn't understand anything about that. You're old and past your sell-by date. So I said, well, you know, try me. And he says, there's somebody I want to kiss, and she's young and beautiful. And I said, well, okay, you got me there. I don't know that much about it. You're probably much more experienced than I am. But for the sake of argument, let's use that analogy to discuss staying in the moment. Now, what is staying in the moment? It's about a kiss, which you've just said, yeah? Okay. There are two forms of kissing I'm going to give you today. So suddenly all the teenagers put down their telephones. They're all listening as if I've got the biggest insight ever since, you know, on how to kiss. I wish. I'm still trying, trust me. And it's a bit late, but anyway. And I said, I'm going to give you two options. The first option is your option. My option? Yeah, you're already doing it. You're spraying and praying. Spraying and praying? Yeah. Tomorrow morning you go onto the school square with your iPhone and you go as a metaphor, and you kiss 1,000 people. I can kiss 1,000 people? Yeah. This is a metaphor. You know what a metaphor? Duh, you know, okay. That's metaphor number one. And everybody says yes. Yeah, just like you spray and pray. You can kiss the girls, the boys, the teachers, you name it, all day long. It's unending. You just keep your finger on the button and it goes. And they're all going, spray and pray, spray and pray. So I've all got their attention now. And they go, right, there's another option, silence. And it's about a kiss. But unfortunately, it's about a kiss that may never happen. Suddenly a big disappointment. Everybody's sort of faces go long. It's just as well I've got light shining on me so I can't see your faces. It never happens? Well, maybe never, but because today's a good day and we're trying to become friends and I want to give you something, I'll give you that one kiss. But it's a special kiss. How special? Well, listen. It lasts 3 seconds. Only 3 seconds? Yeah, 3 seconds. Can't be special. Well, you haven't heard it all yet. 3 seconds on the last minute of the last hour of the last day of the last week, but you've got to wait 3 months for that 3 seconds at the end, which I'll give you this time. I have to wait 3 months for a 3-second kiss, which is not guaranteed? Why the fuck bother? So they all start chanting, spray and pray, spray and pray. And I was going, okay, and then what's your wish? Well, maybe my wish is number 2, but why? Well, because I don't necessarily think it's about the kiss anymore. It's about that phenomenal deep dive, that investment, that journey, that seduction, that romance, that flirt, that fear, that rejection, the failure, the pain, the tears, all those, the kaleidoscope of human emotions, which as the years have gone on, you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and they all become alive. And it's like sticking 1,000 fingers into 1,000 plugs at the same time, and you're continually alive, and you don't want that to stop. Because as a human being, you're connected, deeply connected into seeing the other. And you don't want to make that one ultimate picture. You aspire to make it as an artist because it sustains you. But you're terrified if you make it, the journey will stop because everything will line. And perhaps you don't want that to. So that's how you stay in the moment. Every single breathing day, you aspire to make that one picture which will change people's lives and make us cry, see each other in a different way, and reconnect as human beings in essentially, it's a bit wow, but forgive me, in love. And that's what I'm trying to do for myself because of circumstances of life and path. And that's what I aspire to do in making that one picture. That's how you stay in the moment. And it's so finite and you're so alive. And I said, you know, if I die tomorrow or I die in 40 years' time, it doesn't matter. I'm so in that moment.
So,
yeah. But that's the best way to answer how do you stay in the moment, because I've got 10 fingers plugged into 1,000 plugs of human experience, and I want to keep them there because it gets more and more and more and more alive. as a result of that, I see and I connect with the world and the human beings in the world in ways that I wish we had 5 hours to sit here and share with you.
Yeah, I'm sorry to have to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is. I wanted you to carry on going for ages. That was really interesting. We have our next speaker in 1 minute. So
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm
off.
sorry, but thank you. That was amazing.
You can sit on my lap and we can...
Really interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
That's great.